and I tried to make an appointment with my doctor and they were like, that's great. Come back when you're 12 weeks along. And I was like, 12 weeks along? Like, what do you mean? Like, there's nothing we can do until 12 weeks along. I just couldn't believe it. This is what happens. A mom goes to their doctor. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so fatigued. I'm anxious. My hair is falling out. And the answer is just like, yeah, like that's just part of motherhood. Like you're a mom now, like.
Welcome to Bad Medicine, healing medicine one episode at a time.
I'm Anusa, board certified functional health coach, and this is
Dr. Nicholas Cannella, board certified family medicine physician.
We believe in the importance of lifestyle factors, evidence-based medicine, and moving beyond symptomatic treatment to true healing.
Our mission is to empower you on your journey to optimal health by demystifying healthcare and guiding you through the vast sea of wellness information.
We help you ask the right questions, become more knowledgeable about medicine, and build a good relationship with your medical team.
The Bad Medicine podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical advice. The views expressed are solely those of the hosts and guests. Enjoy. All right. I think we've done it. All right. Well, Doctor, can I call you Brandy?
Yes, please. Yes.
I wanted to start off by hearing a bit about your background. What's this about being a blackjack dealer? As a occasional gambler myself, I'm fascinated how one ends up going from blackjack dealer to doctor of clinical nutrition.
What a journey, right? So thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. When I graduated high school, my father worked in the casino, and so I moved up to Washington to live with him, and he's the one that kind of got me into that field because I could work on the weekends, and because in Washington you only have to be 18, you don't have to be 21, and I could work on the weekends and still go to school. I had just started college, actually funny, for pre-pharmacy, which also what a shift. So I was working on my undergrad and working at the casino on the weekends, and it really fit a need at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I love blackjack. It's the one that you can win if you know the statistics, which, for a nerd like me, I think that's a cool one.
Brandy, tell us a little bit about, I love how passionate you are about helping moms. So from blackjack to, when did that transition happen, and how did you identify that this is the population, or this is the niche, this is who I want to serve? How did that come about?
So I had an initial interest in nutrition, and so I decided after I had completed my undergrad, which ended up being in business management and not pharmacy, but after I had completed that, I really had a strong interest in health and nutrition. So I went back to school to get a nutrition certificate. And at that point, I was very much just focused on, I would call like application-based nutrition. I was doing a lot of farmers market tours and, kind of kitchen audits and basic meal planning. And then I went through my own really debilitating story with mold and mycotoxin illness. I suffered a miscarriage. And once I kind of came through that, at this point, I was working on my master's degree in human nutrition and functional medicine. And I kind of came out the other side of that. And that's when I got pregnant with my first daughter. And after coming out of such a traumatic experience with my own health and having a miscarriage, I just remember feeling like hyper alert, like, okay, I'm pregnant again. I want to do all the things right. Like, and I tried to make an appointment with my doctor and they were like, that's great. Come back when you're 12 weeks along. And I was like, 12 weeks along? Like, what do you mean? Like, there's nothing we can do until 12 weeks along. I just couldn't believe it. And so I really started to identify these gaps in support through this entire reproductive process from preconception to postpartum and beyond. And so after I finished my master's degree, I completely pivoted my practice. And at that point, I was only focused on fertility and preconception prep. And then fast forward, I was now back in school working on my doctorate degree and pregnant again. I don't know what it is about like degrees and having babies that go together with me. But after going through that process, then I pivoted from focusing just on fertility to really focusing on moms. In my opinion, if mom isn't healthy, nobody's healthy, right? Like really starts with mom. They're just the chief medical officers of their family. And the sentence I kept hearing was, things were never the same ever since I had kids. And I wanted to provide a container and a situation for moms where they could really experience the motherhood that they had envisioned for themselves, where they weren't having that in that moment, where they were having to plan their days around how they feel and kind of be on the sidelines and have guilt and feel like they were missing their kids' childhood. And that is just not okay with me, not on my watch. And so I really pivoted to really focus on supporting moms in that stage of life.
So do your clients come to you as soon as they hear they're pregnant and they feel like, oh, this is when I need the support? Or is it postpartum? Or when do they recognize that something is amiss? There's something going on and I need support?
Usually it's after the fact. Again, it's like that sentence of like, things were never the same ever since I had kids. Like, something is wrong here. Something's not going on. And the reason is multifactorial. I mean, obviously we all understand that there's a giant hormone shift that happens in that time of life. And also your sleep patterns change literally overnight. And we don't have a village and a support system like we're meant to. Depending on how your birth went, there could be birth trauma or ramifications from that experience that you're still working on healing from and recovering from. And then also from a thinking more of like a toxin pathogen standpoint, sometimes what can happen is we can have microbes inside of us that don't cause any problems and we're resilient too, and we have this kind of symbiotic relationship with. But what can happen when we have a triggering event or high stress or new exposures, those bugs can undergo something called polymorphism, where they're literally changing shape and now becoming more problematic, now causing more symptoms. So we just have this big trickle down effect. And I also find that postpartum autoimmunity is a big issue that a lot of women are not being properly screened for, especially if there was a C-section birth, because during C-section there can be more microchimerism, which is like this mixing of blood between mom and baby, and that can result to higher increase of launching an immune response. And so there's just all these, it's like this perfect, I don't like to use the word storm because that has a negative connotation, but it's just this huge event in a woman's life where they're now having these downstream symptoms, but nobody is zooming out and putting these pieces together and really figuring out how we're going to get back to the place where we want to be.
Well said. Do you think it should be standard of care to run thyroid antibodies for Hashimoto's?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hashimoto's is the most common postpartum autoimmune condition that we see. And this is what happens. A mom goes to their doctor. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so fatigued. I'm anxious. My hair is falling out. And the answer is just like, yeah, like that's just part of motherhood. Like, you're a mom now, like.
Wow. Well, I've never said that, but I've heard those complaints. And iron deficiency is another one we see quite a bit of for the hair loss too.
So follow up on next question about should that be standard of care? Would you go as far as to say it's bad medicine not to screen moms who have these symptoms, but the doctors haven't quite thought about autoimmunity? Would it be?
I think so. I would say that. And because this is not something that I'm pulling out of a hat here, this is, we see this in the literature, about postpartum autoimmunity. We see this, there's literature around microchimerism. There's literature around, increase of autoantibodies after giving birth. And so, it's there. The literature is there. We just need to be aware that it's there and then implement it into our practice accordingly.
I think some doctors might get close. They'll check the TSH blood test using the lab's reference ranges. But if they look a little closer into maybe age normal reference ranges compared to the person's previous TSH, there might be something there. But those antibodies are usually my go-to because they can really illuminate, positive, negative, whether there's something autoimmune.
Oh, 100%. And even, sometimes I'll see women having a T4 being ran, but not T4 and T3. And thinking about childbirth, there's a lot of burden put on the liver because, the liver is how we're metabolizing all of those extra hormones. And the liver is also prime conversion site from T4 to T3. And so how do we know where the defect is in that cascade and in that cycle if we don't have all the data? It could be a conversion issue, not an issue upstream, in the pituitary or the hypothalamus.
And also the microbiome, it just really, it gives you a really good insight on what's happening as far as the conversion. So, I mean, I think what we do is we really think about them as just separate systems instead of looking at it like this is a whole, really thinking about the woman and thinking about all the systems in and looking at it as a where could it be and just thinking outside the box. I think that needs to happen more and more in regular medicine as well.
I want to ask you about mold, maybe kind of the telltale signs when we should be thinking mold, and then testing for mold. It's challenging. Are we getting any insurance coverage here? Do you have to seek out cash pay testing on your own? Which tests? Everyone's trying to sell their tests. Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I see mold being a big issue. I have a personal story with mold, as I mentioned. And so the challenge with mold and mycotoxin is that it can cause symptoms that are very broad, sweeping, and non-specific. So for me, I was having really extreme vertigo, really intense fatigue, and brain fog. And then I also had a kind of a unique symptom, which I honestly haven't heard others having, but I had erythema nodosum on my shins. Which is, like hot, heavy, hard nodules on your shins. And when that happened, I had that before as a reaction to some birth control that I had been prescribed many years prior. And so when that happened, I knew something was up with my hormones because it wasn't my first time having that symptom. And I'm just really feeling like I was very much out of my body and not present. Other symptoms would include vision issues, GI pain and discomfort, bloating, joint pain, skin rashes. Ice pick type of headaches can be another one that I see a lot. And again, it could be that we were exposed before pregnancy and we were managing okay. We weren't having any outward symptoms, or our detoxification and drainage pathways were open and we were handling it okay. And now maybe after pregnancy and motherhood, that's no longer the case. And I see this a lot, especially in women who got pregnant no problem with baby number 1. Now they're trying to have baby number 2, and all of a sudden there's an issue. They're miscarrying, they're not able to get pregnant, it's taking a long time, and nobody's talking to them about looking into this toxicity issue. So for testing, it is cash pay testing. So you can run IgG tests or IgE tests to different molds. That is looking for an allergy, right? Like that's not looking for an immune response to the mycotoxin. So it's a different type of testing. We can still get information from, what like a LabCorp can run that can be ran through our insurance. But I just think it's important to know that that's a different type of testing than what you can find in private labs that run mycotoxin testing. And then I think it's also important to test your home, doing like an ERMI test, looking at where that exposure might be. For me, it was at my job. Thankfully, I'm glad it wasn't in my home, but being able to identify where that exposure is an important part of testing as well.
ERMI? What's ERMI?
ERMI, ERMI. Yeah, it's a type of testing in the home that is more sensitive and more accurate than what you might find like if you just went to Home Depot and picked up like a mold testing kit.
Okay.
And it may be lurking anywhere. I know in my home, it was in the dark places in my closet, where, and even just kind of treating that just made such a big difference,
I think you mentioned a really potential pitfall for patients is they have these concerns. The doctor goes on their computer, types in mold, boom, there's a test at LabCorp. I can order the mold test for you. And then test comes back negative. Patient sees it, says, oh, it's not mold, moves on. And they're left like, it's not mold. I've been tested, which is a potentially major flaw in their understanding, because it is a limited test. While it can be valuable if positive, can maybe be a hint, negative does not rule it out.
So, Brandy, besides mold, are there any other toxins that could show up? Just wondering what our listeners should be really thinking about when it comes to toxins and postpartum, what really affects the mom in her condition and the stress of having a new baby, all of that.
Yeah, totally. So other toxins that, mold and Lyme tend to be kind of bedmates. They often kind of run together. And so while that's not necessarily a toxin or toxicant, I think it's important to also work with somebody who understands that and is also assessing and looking at immune function, and looking at any kind of underlying infections or co-infections that may be there. Because this can happen a lot in moms too. Like they might have a reactivation of viral issues, especially if there's thyroid and EBV like to run together. And so somebody who's looking at those underlying infections. And then for toxins, I'm really thinking about things like BPA. I'm looking at things like glyphosate and atrazine, which is another herbicide that is used, or pesticide that is used. I'm looking at things like plasticizers, VOCs, all of these things in the environment that, again, may not have been causing issues before, but now your internal environment is different. And so now they may be causing issues. And so we may need to be a little bit more mindful about where we're getting exposed, reducing exposure, supporting our body's natural drainage and detoxification pathways. And then also a big component, a lot of people like to just jump to a fancy, sexy detox protocol or a parasite cleanse. And that usually is not the place to start, especially in moms. What I find is so needed is nervous system regulation. And for me, that's a non-negotiable. That nervous system piece has to be on board so that we're sending messages of safety to the body and to the nervous system so that it can close that healing loop, so it's not stuck in that cell danger response, so that the mitochondria can be actively producing energy and ATP versus, being more in like battleship mode where they're trying to fight and deal with whatever you have going on.
That is well said. I think we all, we see that, we need to just make sure your detoxification pathways are spot on. Let's just do this cleanse or this. But you're right, the nervous system holds the key. So what are some things that you would tell your patients about how to take care of the nervous system?
Gosh, there's so many different ways. And just like detoxing, there's usually kind of an order of operations. Some things work better in the beginning versus later on. I think the first thing is just to start having an awareness. Notice what you're noticing. Be aware of the language you're using. And, a test that I give my clients is like, what's your knee-jerk response when somebody asks you how you're doing? When somebody asks you how you're doing, what do you say? Do you like, oh, I'm hanging in there, doing okay, getting by? All of those are messages that your nervous system is listening to, your subconscious is listening to, and you're sending those messages to your body. And language is so, so powerful. I was just at lunch with somebody and she's working on this big project. I said, how's it going? She's like, oh, it's killing me. No, we're not going to use language like that. We're going to first have an awareness of how we're speaking to and about ourselves, because that's the first step. Then the second step, I think this is an easy kind of next layup step that's relatively easy for people to do, is to start slowing down around mealtime. Before, when you sit down to eat, first of all, get out a placemat, put it on the table, sit down at the table, don't sit down with your phone. chew your food to applesauce consistency. Take a few deep breaths before you start eating. Express gratitude. Actually taste your food, especially as a mom. Like, let's have a meal. Let's not just have the crust from our kid's sandwich and call it a day. Like, sit down and have that meal, and just and sending those messages of safety and gratitude to our nervous system, gratitude for this meal that we're having, for these nutrients that are now coming down our digestive tract. And that's such a good place to start. And of course, from there, we can talk about things like grounding and breath work and meditation and somatic work. There's things we can do to support our limbic system and our vagal nerve system. I mean, there's so much in this, but for moms especially, it's like, let's just meet us where we are and let's just start here. And that's a great way to start.
Yeah, I love
Brandy,
it.
I was so sure you would say sleep because that's something most moms, young moms, are really struggling
It's
with.
hard to get
Yeah,
that.
it's so hard. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
And
Yeah,
so
I love
important.
it.
You're right. I mean, talking about detoxification, the glymphatic system is how our brain, detoxes and cleans up. And the glymphatic system is activated almost exclusively while we're sleeping, right? So if we're not sleeping, imagine what kind of downstream symptoms we're going to have, and fatigue and brain fog. So you're right. That should have been in there for sure.
We'll edit it. Yeah, don't worry.
Oh, no, no. No, but I hear why you didn't say sleep, because it is difficult as a young mother, because they have to sleep when the baby's asleep. There's so many things that come up, and all those things that you were saying about concern and worries, they all come to just kind of trick you at night, into like, let's have a conversation right now about it. So it's more fun.
I have to admit, when I have a new parent who's not sleeping, I don't really have an answer for them. I don't know if there is one out there to get them more sleep. I just sort of accept and work around it. I don't know. You guys have any better strategy than me?
I think that the best thing to do to help sleep is to support your circadian rhythm in the morning. A lot of people, when they go to their provider and they're like, oh, I can't sleep, usually the conversation is like, make sure you have a consistent bedtime, like turn off the lights, you have a good bedtime routine, make sure you have time to wind down. But I want to know, what are you doing when you first wake up? Because that's going to impact your sleep the most. And so when you wake up, are you just grabbing your phone and that's your first light exposure, is that blue light from your phone? Or can we get up, walk outside, get that message from the sun about what time it is, which is then going to signal, melatonin to be produced 14 hours later. If that first message of lighting we're getting is from that artificial blue light from our phone, or we're turning on the kitchen light or opening the fridge and looking at that light, all of those things interfere with that messaging of what time it is. And every cell in our body has a physiological response to what time it is. We're constantly wanting to know what time of day it is. That's why we have photoreceptors in our eyes and on our skin, and we have clock genes and all of this to tell us what time of day it is. And so for me, especially for moms, that helps the most, and you do it with your kids and it helps them the most. And you can get outside during the day as often as you can, but especially in the morning when you're getting that good infrared light. And again, at sunset, infrared light is high again at sunset, and the whole family will benefit. And it doesn't take any extra money. You don't need a fancy biohacking tool. It's available to you every day.
Just a good reminder that we are diurnal, and it's more than just the vitamin D. And especially women hear all these mixed signals. Oh, SPF, wrinkles. So really getting past that and just getting that morning sunlight. And also that's very depends on your race as well. If you're African American or Indian, I need way more of that sunlight in the morning than someone else. So all of those becomes like important conversations, I think, about circadian rhythm, yeah.
It's pretty amazing. And you mentioned clock genes. It reminds me of my dog has a food dispenser. It goes at 6:30 p.m. every evening. 6:15. She's there ready. And I have patients, they wake up at 6 a.m. every day. They don't need an alarm clock. I believe, have this ability in our in our DNA to have a rhythm. And but most of us, we're not entrained, and we don't have that body clock for whatever reason. Maybe it's the 5-day work week, and then the 2 days are totally different, and we're never really entrained. We're always kind of changing our bedtimes, our wake times.
The artificial light,
Yep.
huge.
Yeah, fascinating.
I
What
really
do you
wanted
wanna-
to ask Brandy about the Resilient Motherhood
Oh yeah,
Summit,
let's hear about that.
and just explain in your own words what people will get out of the summit and why they need to listen and tune in. And yeah.
Yeah, so, my whole motivation behind putting on this summit was because our kids are little for what feels like 5 seconds. And I don't want moms to miss it because of how they feel, because they're not able to find answers. They're not able to connect the dots because they're having to plan their day around how they feel and not being able to make those memories that they thought that they were going to be able to before they started having kids. And so what I have done, I've pulled together 40 experts that brought their expertise to the table, and they all have a different area of expertise that I want moms to be aware of. All 40 talks are probably not applicable to all moms, but I wanted to get us all in one room, so to speak, so that moms can identify what that very next best step for them is, because I don't want you to miss it. I don't want you to miss your child's, childhood, and I don't want you to look back feeling like, oh man, I wish that really went differently. So it's a 7-day event launching February 28th through March 6th. Anu is a speaker on the summit. She's talking all about gut microbiome as well as vaginal microbiome and the impact on health. And so, I just encourage everybody to come. The event is free. It's like a buffet. Take what resonates with you, leave what doesn't. And then at the end of the event, my goal is that you've been able to now identify what that very next best step for you is.
I did want to ask you about reconnection. I saw this in your information. What specifically do you mean when you say reconnection?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I have my Resilient Mother program that I work with people, and Resilient is an acronym, and the R is reconnection. And this is so important because it means reconnection to oneself, reconnection to one's purpose, which we can tend to lose sight of in motherhood, reconnection to nature, reconnection to our community, reconnection to our food source, or just the act of eating and nourishing our body. Like I mentioned earlier, we get so disconnected in our modern world. We are so disconnected. We could spend all day just interacting with our phone and people through a screen. We're not getting outside. We're not connecting with other real live human beings, in the flesh, so to speak. And that loss of connection, that disconnection really, really can drive chronic symptoms in mom. And so incorporating that reconnection piece, that's why it gets its own letter in the acronym, because it's so important.
And I think the word reconnection to me, especially when you think about from the perspective of a mom, a new mom, is out goes the ego, right? There's no room for yourself. It's all about the kid. It's about the baby. And so you're so caught up in that reconnecting with your true nature and your true self really takes a back seat. So even just kind of reminding yourself, like, this is my true nature. This is what makes me thrive. This is my ikigai, and putting a positive spin, Brandy, like you said, because there's no room for negativity, especially as a new mom, you're just putting that energy out to your child as well. I think that's just a fabulous word. Yeah.
Goes back into the mindfulness and mindset that you were
Yeah.
talking about, and reminds me, why moms sometimes say they don't get colds, right? Is they ain't got time
Yeah.
to get colds, dude. That's why I don't get colds.
Yeah.
Because there's so much the mind can control. It's through the nervous
Listen.
system, as you said. Beautiful.
So-
Rapid?
Yes,
do it?
rapid. Let's
Let's
do
do it.
rapid. Yeah.
I think you're up first.
Okay.
Rapid fire.
Your 3 favorite ways to reduce toxin exposure at home, budget friendly?
First and foremost, air circulation, especially if you're living in a newer home. They build those homes to be airtight. Open up the windows, get fresh air in. That takes no time and no money. Secondly, there are several apps that you can do this, but go through your house and scan all your products that you come in contact with. Your cleaning products, your laundry detergent, your toothpaste, your deodorant, your makeup, all of your products that you come in contact with. Get a notebook and take note of the ones that score the worst as far as, what ingredients they have and what literature is available for how they could have negative impact on the body. And then as that runs out, replace it with something better. So it's just one by one. This is not an overwhelming thing. Then you don't need to throw out everything, but now you have an awareness. You're noticing, what is in your environment. And that's a great way to start. And then third, if you drive on a daily basis, especially if you're driving in a city where you have high exposure to like vehicular exhaust, push the button in your car that recirculates the air versus pulling air in from the outside, and that will greatly reduce the amount of that exhaust that's getting pulled into your car.
Busy mom, 2 p.m., energy slump. What is your best go-to snack?
Go-to as a snack. I don't, this is a hard one for me because I feel like there are other things that will increase your energy at 2 p.m. instead of a snack. There's a type of breath work called the bellows breath that you can do. You could do this like 10 to 20 times. It involves like you could YouTube it, but it has to do with like moving your arms up and down in sync with your breath. There is a contraindication for hypertension, so proceed with caution. Talk to your doctor. But that when you get done with that, you will be amazed at how just like awake and alert you feel. Also, get outside. Let your body know where the position of the sun is. Let your body take in those messages and get outside. If it's warm enough, take off your shoes. Get some good electrons coming up from the earth that then support your mitochondria, which of course then, creates ATP and cellular energy for us. And I think all of those are better than like any snack you could grab.
All right. We love it. Name one common product or habit you believe every new mom should avoid to protect her health.
There's so many products full of junk that are marketed to new moms. Like, you don't need to buy these lactation cookies that are sitting on the shelf in the diaper aisle of Target. No, gross. You don't need to buy, bath products for your baby that are full of scents or even natural things. Like even lavender, there's everyone thinks lavender is so benign. There is research around lavender impacting like hormones in young boys. And so you just don't have to. You don't need it. And really, like if you're thinking about what to put on your registry, the baby doesn't need anything. The baby just needs a well cared for mom. Put on the registry that you need like, mesh underwear and like instant icicle pads and, things that you need for you. A recipe, make me some real good lactation cookies. Just put stuff on there that supports you. The baby is fine.
Anything do you have clients coming in and saying, can you just give me a simple hack for detoxing my body? Is that something? Because that seems to be something that the internet is full of, just like, what is a quick fix for detoxification?
A quick fix doesn't exist, but being mindful of exposure, that's quick relatively, and then lowering exposure wherever you can. I am, as a big fan of utilizing binders in practice. We have phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. We also have phase 3, which is how we excrete and get those things out. And so, I find that binders can be really helpful in doing that. There's lots of different types. Some are better than others. Some work better than others for different compounds. But I mean, if you're asking me for like a quick fix and you want me to actually give you an answer, I'd probably say binders. I really like the biotoxin binder from Cellcore. It tends to be pretty well tolerated. It also has, it has active carbon in it and selective binding, so you don't have to be as careful around not taking it when you're eating or with other supplements. I still recommend not taking it around medication, but that's a pretty good kind of gateway binder.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think my last question is redundant, but I'm still going to ask it. What is one simple way to reset a hectic day, reconnect yourself? Maybe one you haven't mentioned.
I would get out your phone and I would look for 3 people in your phone that's in your contact list and send them a message of gratitude. Reach out to them, tell them what about them you're grateful for, what they do, what you love about them. That shifting into a state of gratitude will sink you into a different frequency. When we're focused on what is lacking in our life, when we're focused on the energy that we don't have, the money that we don't have, we wish things were that way. That is a different frequency than when we're focused on what we can give to others, how we can forgive others, what we're grateful for about others. And just do that. Open up your phone and send those messages. And then you'll be amazed at how that energy quickly gets reciprocated back on you.
I've never heard of using that for gratitude mindset, but I think it's great. Not just on the once a year at the holidays,
Right.
but to reach out it's more spontaneously. So everyone listening, please send those 3 texts. Your body will thank you.
So, Brandy, where can our listeners find you online? What is the best way to connect with you? And especially as a mom going through all of this,
My website is resilientmotherhood.health, and that's also my Instagram handle, resilientmotherhood.health, which is the social that I'm most active on. I'm also on Facebook and TikTok, but just not as much as on Instagram.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, this was amazing. I loved how you broke it down. You kept it simple. You kept things low cost, which we love. Although we did force you to recommend one supplement, so there we go. We got one in there.
I loved your advice, which is really, like Nick said, low cost, because we have to be mindful that not everyone can afford these fancy tests. And so a lot of the things that you said were so practical and something that young mothers can start using like right away, just that's wonderful.
I think we have a theme for the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Bad Medicine. We hope that today's conversation empowers you to take a more informed role in your health journey.
Remember, your path to optimal health is unique, and integrating medical insights along with lifestyle changes can make all the difference.
Don't forget to subscribe to Bad Medicine on your favorite platforms so you never miss an episode.
And we love hearing from you. If you have questions, a topic that you'd like for us to explore,
please reach out to us on Instagram @BadMedicinePod.